Welcome to Michigan Atheists Speak Up. I'm Arlene-Marie, Director, Michigan Atheists. Our guest today is Bria Crutchfield, and Bria is the founder of Minority Atheists of Michigan. Welcome to the show, Bria.
Thank you, Arlene-Marie, for having me.
You're welcome. So, what prompted you to form this organization?
Initially, when I came out as an atheist, living in Detroit, there was nowhere for me to gravitate to identify with atheists that looked like me. So I took to Twitter, and I learned about atheism on Twitter, but I still didn't have any people that looked like me. And when I had asked about black atheists, I was directed to Facebook. And so I did join a couple of groups on Facebook, and those groups were already established, so I felt like I was in over my head. So I created a group called Black Freethinkers just to provide haven or solace for black atheists who just came out and didn't know what to do.
Was that also an online group?
Yep, that was also on Facebook, and it was pretty successful. Yeah. It was short-lived, but it was successful.
Why was it short-lived?
Because I wanted to get off Facebook. I wanted to get offline. And for whatever reason, people are they're very comfortable being an atheist online, but I needed to get out. I needed to learn. There were things that I needed to learn. And it was more social on Facebook. And as an atheist, I just wanted to learn about rights and activism, and I couldn't find that on Facebook. So I closed it up and came to your meetup. I came to Detroit Atheist meetup, several others, and I did notice that there weren't many people that looked like me, and I brought that up to you, and I wanted you to do something about it.
And I did.
Well, you did, but
I encouraged you to start a group.
Yes, you did, but I wanted you to do the work.
Oh,
I didn't want to do the work.
Oh, I see.
But I accepted the challenge, and it was intimidating. You know, there was trepidation because I didn't know what the expectations were, but we have almost 30 members now, and the group started June 2011. So I'm very proud of that. So thank you.
Now, I've been to your group, so I know for certain that you don't mean for your group to be a black group. You do mean it to be in the broadest idea of minorities.
Yes. When I first created Black Freethinkers on Facebook, there were people who opposed the name. And at that time, being a black atheist was very important to me. So I was not mature enough in my thinking to appreciate the critique that I received. Once I dissolved the group, I realized that I'm more than a black person. I'm an atheist who's black, who's a woman, who's a lesbian. I mean, I am this huge minority. And there was a need for it. There was a group for gay atheists that had since dissolved. But I wanted to go past the atheists. What about our brown brothers and sisters? What about our Asian brothers and sisters? Disabled, LGBT. So that I believe in calling the group Minority Atheists kind of encompass all the minorities in Michigan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, so far, Bria, what do you think is like the best experience that you've had with the group?
The best experience is having people show up.
Yeah.
I mean, while I had complete trust in my capabilities and I know where I want the group to go, I know that I have you on board to mentor me in whatever efforts I would like to go into. That doesn't mean that there's other people who's going to see the vision. So when you get the RSVP that people are going to show up, it's just a vote of self-confidence, and it motivates me to keep going. So,
and you've chosen a topic for your next meeting, and what is that topic?
Well, it's Black History Month. We just had our last meetup, and it was about sex, and we didn't get to broach the topic. And the topic is, since now that we're atheists, because many of us were believers. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. I left the Jehovah's Witness organization and only later to become part of a non-denominational slash apostolic Christian church. And you know, your viewpoints on sex are pretty conservative around other people, but once you come into yourself as a free thinker, you come into yourself as a whole, not just regarding religion, non-religion, but it affects every part of your life, because when you're religious, you have so many rules. And it's not to say that I run red lights, you know, I kick old ladies on the street, of course not. But things that I had imposed upon myself, I found were unnecessary. And that included my views towards sex. And my kids are in the audience, so I'm a little shy talking about that in front of them. But, you know, there's just a freedom that I can be sexual and talk about sex without worrying about burning in hell. So the meetup, we were supposed to broach that topic, and I hope that we can talk about that issue this meetup.
Okay. Bria, you were speaking about all of the things that encumbered you. We like to talk about the cultural morals. Yeah. Atheists are so often told, well, you don't have morals. Yeah. Well, of course, we know we have morals. We have the basic morals that we got from our primates. Right. We don't lie, kill, do those kinds of things to get along in our tribe or our community. But those cultural morals are laced with religion. And so your lifestyle was laced with all kinds of religious do's and don'ts.
Many do's and don'ts. And what non-majority members, when you step out and step away and decide to take a different direction than your community, there's guilt that's attached. Your community thrusts expectations upon your shoulders, and it's kind of hard to look at your community and say, I don't want the responsibility. I didn't ask for it. And basically, when you become an atheist, it's not only your mother, your father, you done slapped your great-grandmother, great-great, you just slapped your ancestors in the face. However, I have to be who I have to be in order to be happy. And regardless whatever direction my children take, whether I agree with it or not, what's important is that they're happy. I will not put my expectations, because they're always going to differ from your children anyway. I will not put my expectations upon my children. I just want my kids to be happy and a free thinker.
Now, I have to wonder if the cultural morals are a little steeper in the black community than the white community. Of course, I'm from the white community, so I had all those cultural morals thrust upon me through my childhood and still to this very day. But when I go to meetings, even national conventions anywhere in the country, there can be 400, 500, 600 people in the room. I'm lucky if I see 7, 8, 9 black folks. Do you have an explanation for that?
Fear. As I had stated earlier, the social networks are filled to capacity with black atheists. You Google black atheists on Google, YouTube, there are so many videos with black atheists giving their story. However, stepping out into the real world is totally something different. Yes. Because you represent your community. And while I am thankful to the trailblazers who have preceded me, I want to make my own path, and I'm going to make my own rules. And it's not important to me as to, I love my parents, but at this point in my life, it is not important to me about what they think. what do they think about me being an atheist? Of course they're upset. My father's a Jehovah's Witness. My mother, she's a believer. She's more spiritual. But of course they're not happy at all. Like 4 children, and I'm the atheist. 4 children, I'm the one that's the rebeller. However, this is where I am. This is who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. That's why I step out. That's why I keep going with Minority Atheists of Michigan. That's why I have my tattoos, because I am proud of who I am. Very proud. And I'm out at work. So I'm staunchly proud to be an atheist.
Now, on the surface, for me, it appears that much in the black community, much of the social life, if not in fact their culture, it stems from church. So I would assume that breaking away from the church is breaking away from a whole culture, a whole social.
Well, that's true, especially, you know, you're identified by the church you attend. The church I went to, I had fun. The pastor was nice. They loved my children. I was in leadership. I was a minister. I was an evangelist. I was a prophetess. I mean, I was very entrenched in the church. However, I know this is a common story among atheists, but I read the Bible. I read the parts that I was not directed to read. And, you know, I was telling my kids earlier, I couldn't even justify my children if they drank out of a milk carton and put it back on the shelf in the refrigerator. But I'm able to justify why God is a serial killer. You know, and something's wrong with that. Something is very wrong. And sure, I lost friends that I thought we were friends at church. They defriended me on Facebook. They won't have anything to do with me. But that's okay. That's par for the course. Having said that, I have to keep moving. Roll with me, get rolled over. And that's the motto for my life. You either roll with or you're just going to get rolled over, because I cannot stop. I can't stop, because this is very important to me. I have grandchildren now, and I want them to know they have choices. Whichever way they go.
That's the magic word, isn't it?
They have choices. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because we start, I like to use the word brainwashing our children from sometimes right at birth about the particular flavor of religion that mom or dad are into, and the choices of exploring this on their own really don't exist until they get older very often.
I'm guilty. I'm very guilty. I manipulated, you know, I'm ashamed to admit that, but yeah, I manipulated my children using religion. You know, you can't live long upon the land if you do not honor your mother and father. And if I could just rewind the clock and just let my children be who they want to be whatever you want to be, a ditch digger, who cares? If I could just take back that gap of time to where you say brainwashing, I call it inculcating, semantics, but if I could take back that time, that's my biggest regret, is that I did that to my children. But I'm working feverishly to undo it. So,
I was listening to some reports most recently that there's, I think it's a very minor push to cancel Black History Month, which is every February. And I was listening to some of the pros and cons regarding that. But the con that most caught my attention was that if that occurs, we're leaving out a very important part of history. And so I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Whether we have a month designated to acknowledge the achievements of my Black predecessors, it doesn't negate the fact that we've come a long way. Mm-hmm. We have a long way to go. But I believe that the education should be in the home. The kids have laptops, smartphones. They have knowledge at their fingertips, literally at their fingertips. So even if it was taken away, if it was stripped away, it still doesn't eradicate what we as a people have done. It still doesn't eradicate Benjamin Banneker. It doesn't erase George Washington Carver or Dr. Sykivu Hutchinson, an awesome activist, feminist, atheist, Dr. Anthony Penn, an awesome humanist. It does not change the fact that we are here, we're accomplished, and we'll continue to do so. I don't need a month to tell me that I'm okay. I know that every day I wake up, I'm fine just as I am.
One of the things that has always intrigued me and intrigues atheists at large is the Bible is what was used primarily to hold the blacks into slavery. And yet, they took up the Bible, and it's still very big in their life today.
That's a sore spot for me because my family is big Word of Faithers, and I love them. When I posed that to several people I know who are believers today, that the same holy book that was used to keep our people enslaved, right, we're now using that book to enslave ourselves. I'm told, well, I know, but there's no but. You can't justify lunacy. When someone told me that, and I think I was like slowly getting away from religion, and so the person said, well, Bri, I don't understand how as a black person you was even a Christian knowing that masters used that same Bible to enslave, to justify. I had no answer. I hadn't even thought of it. And do you know why? Because my church had used the scriptures, I believe it was in the New Testament, where there was I can't remember verbatim, but there was the master and the slave. The master was referred to by the pastor as our employer. The slave was the employee. And I was so upset because, so you mean all this time my relatives who were slaves were due benefits, 401k? They were employees. You mean they could have walked out the kitchen? They could have walked off the land anytime they wanted to? No, that's not true. You know, that's not, to make something so ugly and try to put a bow on it and put it in a pretty box is ridiculous. But this happens every day in the church, and people are scared to challenge. Why? Because most of them aren't educated. You can't, if you trust what the pastors say, but you don't crack open the book, you don't do any research, you're going to assume that what the pastors say is correct. I did, until I started reading for myself and say, wait a minute, this isn't adding up. And then question. And when I began to question, remember, I was an evangelist, I was a prophetess, I was an intercessory prayer warrior. I told you, I was partners with Pat Robinson in the 700 Club. I was sat down for questioning. So there's repercussions. You get talked about. And a lot of people can't handle that, especially, I didn't grow up in church. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And I was excommunicated, which I was fine with that. But when I became a member of my church, it was everything to me. It was literally everything. I was there from the time they opened to the time they closed. Be there 6-7 hours on Sunday. That was nothing because I loved being there. But to say I no longer believe, man, I was risking all of that, losing the people that loved me, losing people that called me their friends. It was worth it. And if I had to do it all over again, I would, because I met great friends such as yourself. So,
well, it's really moving from one community to another in a sense.
It is.
And one of the things that we learn very quickly in the atheist community is that's a community that perhaps the only thing we have in common is that we live our lives free of the dogmas of traditional theology. We don't have a culture, we don't have traditions, customs. We all think very independently.
Which I love.
Which is my favorite thing about atheists. We speak up when we're dissatisfied about anything. We're quick to praise. We we don't belong to any particular political party. Right. We're a broad spectrum with that. So, yeah, that search for knowledge, but it also takes a tremendous amount of courage to step out. So within your Minority Atheists of Michigan group, you're certainly hoping to provide that stepping stone.
You know, and that's a good way of putting it. I am a firm believer, if you choose to come out as an atheist, fine. If you don't, you're still fine. And I remember a friend of mine had questioned, should you put that sign out? Because when we go to Panera Bread, I have my sign, Michigan Atheist. Should you put that sign out? Yes, I should put that sign out. And I'm going to keep putting it out until the sign falls apart, disintegrate, or I have to create a new one. But it is huge change, takes courage.
Yes, it does.
It takes courage, and you know, this isn't something that you wake up and say, today I'm going to shake up my life and those around me. This was a nail biter. When I decided to come out as an atheist, I'm like, oh, wow, the one day I decide I'm an atheist will be the day that God will open up the earth and swallow me whole. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew I couldn't live a lie anymore. And if I can help other people to not live a lie, or to say, you know what, I'm fine as I am, and I'm going to live my life, so be it. And I had a video on YouTube, and a woman told me that she watched the video, she came out to her husband, and then she found out that her husband was an atheist. They were both still going to church, and she found out that he was an atheist, but he was scared to tell her. So you never know who you'll affect. You don't know. But I just want to be effective in any way that's possible.
Now, you had been an open atheist online.
Yeah.
And when you decided to go out publicly, to your knowledge, had you ever met face-to-face with another atheist?
To my knowledge, outside of meetups, no. To my knowledge. Well, I don't know if this person was an atheist, but they recognized my tattoo because I have the atheist symbol and a humanism symbol, and they questioned it and they congratulated me. But it was in passing, so I didn't get a chance to say, well, hey. But they said, oh, nice tattoo, congratulations. And so I can assume that they were an atheist or free thinker. I don't know for sure, but it would be nice.
Well, today we know that 1 out of 5 people are atheists.
That's huge.
So we're everywhere. So anytime we're in a group of people, even if we might be in church, we can be certain that we're going to have some atheists, fellow thinkers around us.
Well, I was an atheist sitting in the church, and I'm sure I wasn't by myself.
Well, absolutely,
encouraged.
because you were involved in a recent conversation with us where we were talking about the Clergy Project, and that's a project that Richard Dawkins and Daniel Denning and a few other people have started. It's a safe house for clergy members who are actively preaching but are definitely not believers.
Right.
So, they're there. They're in the church.
It's like, how many times?
We're everywhere.
How many times can you read that book before you call it crap? I mean, how many times? I mean, it's a great piece of fiction. It is. It's a great piece of fiction. Bravo. But that's as far as that's as much credit as I'll give it. It's great fiction.
Well, now that you've been able to experience various levels of the atheist community, that's something that you hear most often, that I became an atheist after I read the Bible. And I really don't know. I myself have never had any experience to know a believer that has literally read the Bible cover to cover. I'm sure that there are them. But most believers will tell you that they read the Bible daily, but they don't read it cover to cover. They read the same passages over and over, and it does make a difference.
Well, I have the Bible downloaded on my phone, as an app, because you know I never know when I'm going to be challenged. So there are parts like Leviticus. I'm going through Leviticus now, just to refresh myself.
Leviticus and Deuteronomy,
exactly.
And certainly Matthew, sections of Matthew. Yes, absolutely, powerful reading.
Very powerful.
Well, most of the laws for war, pillage and murder are found in Deuteronomy.
Oh, right. I mean, it's like a Lifetime movie almost.
Yeah.
With a R rating.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah.
Now, we've concentrated pretty much on the black community, probably because you're black.
Probably.
But I've been, as I said, I've been to some of your meetings, and it's not, your group is not pure black.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination, it's not pure black.
And I'm very happy about that. I grew up in Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles. My household was black. My neighborhood was predominantly black and Hispanic. And when I graduated from junior high school, I had the opportunity to attend a magnet school. And I told my mother emphatically, if you make me go to my home school, which was predominantly black, I was dropping out. I've had enough of black. Don't get me wrong, I love black people, but I know the world is not black. The world is made up of so many cultures, and it's so diverse and eclectic, and I got to experience that in high school. I love it. My favorite radio station, 89X. I love alternative music. I listen to some R&B, but I like Dave and Chuck the Freak that comes on in the morning. And I want that has to be reflected in the group. Otherwise, I could stay online and could have kept the Black Free Thinkers group going.
But thank you for
Thank you for having me
here, and
it's
it's
a
been
pleasure.
nice talking with you.
Thank you. See you soon.